We are going to endeavor to set up a simple acoustic guitar today. This is a Mitchell guitar, belongs to a friend of mine. He says he likes playing his Epiphone Les Paul, but he says he just hates playing acoustic. And oftentimes the reason you don't like to play any particular guitar is because it doesn't feel good to play. And in this case, the setup's not too bad. The strings are pretty high off the neck. The required relief of the neck was in play, and we'll double check that once we get done. But at the end of the nut here, the strings are really far off the neck at the nut, so we're going to take care of that. And then the bridge here, the strings, like I said, were pretty far off the neck, so we're going to take this out and sand it down. And before we do that, though, we will take a pencil and we'll make a mark on this side, and we'll make a mark on this side, and that's just so that we can sand and keep our sanding plane level. We won't necessarily sand down to these lines, but we'll sand so that we maintain an equal distance between them as we go down. Now, we are going to go pretty far, though. We probably will sand down to those lines. Now, for here, we're going to take I went ahead with a razor blade around the side here and made sure that we didn't have any connection of the nut to any varnish. I don't know how close I can get, but you can see that there is a bit of separation already. The nut sits down in the neck nicely in that notch, but it looks to be pretty free and clear of the rest of the neck. And it looks the same on the other side. But it's a good idea to just make sure there's no connected varnish. And then we're going to put our screwdriver right here on the front, right here like this. And we're going to just give a gentle tap with another little brass mallet or steel mallet, just lightly to free that up, and it should pop right off. That's a much better, it's a much easier way to lower that than trying to file each one of those slots, especially when the slots are as big as they are. If you look at those, it's a pretty big nut, and I would take, I could do it, but you've got 6 chances of making an error. If you sand the whole thing down and keep it flat, then you get one right. They're all going to be right. We're not going to try to get it too low, but it was pretty high. Okay, so we'll be back in a second. We are back, and this nut tapped out just like I thought it would. There's no residual glue in there. There's no wood broke off. Sometimes you do break off some wood if they used a lot of glue in there. But this one really was just barely stuck in there. Popped right out. Just tapped lightly. Didn't give it a big whack. And it moved right off the bat as soon as I tapped it lightly. And you can work your way along the front of that, tap here, then here, tap there, and you'll see if it starts to give or not. And if you think it's going to cause damage, then leave it in there and work the slots individually to get it lowered. And then I took my marker and went around the left margin on the back side and the front. This is indelible, and I will sand until the line is gone all the way down. And then on this one, the top marks are where it was in the saddle up there, and I put these lower marks down here. I'm going to take that much off initially and then put it back in. Now, if you get this too low, it's not a big deal. You can put strips of paper in underneath it to bring it back up. If you get this too low, you can do the same thing, strip of paper, but people don't like to have a lot of paper in their guitars. It's better to have the hard components, the bone or the ivory, or in this case the plastic. If you can have that contacting the wood all the way around, it's certainly a lot better for your tone and sustain. But I've shimmed a few of my electric guitars, and I have a shim up here in my Martin or my Taylor, and I used to have a Martin, but I preferred the Taylor, and it really didn't I couldn't tell any difference. But theoretically and scientifically, you would want hard materials between the strings and the sound hole to convey as much as that beautiful resonance as possible. Okay, I'll put a piece of sandpaper on my workbench right here so it keeps it nice and flat, and I will sand thusly, and then turn and sand equally on this side, turn and sand, then turn and sand so that I don't develop a bevel that'll make it wobble. It's just a good idea to sand and then turn and sand, because you tend to have more of a force on this side of it when you're pushing. You're going to sand off more material on that side, so then you turn it just to keep the two ends equal. This guy's going to be harder to sand because there's nothing to grip onto, but we'll give it a shot. About 10 minutes of sanding, and you can see we're down to the second line I drew. So we'll pop that back in and check it. And then on the nut, we have just a hair of that original black line left. And we'll try that. So, you know, it doesn't take much. Most of it's going to come off this side. But that should make the whole thing a little more fun. Strings are still on the guitar, so we'll pop this bridge in, and then we'll pop the nut in. That'll just pop in like that. The nut will pop in. We'll try it first, and then after we get this back in, if it looks good, I can take it back out real quick. Got to hold on to this. And if it's too low, double-sided sticky tape works great as a way to tack it in there. But if I like the way it is, I will sometimes just put a thin layer of Elmer's paper glue on there, because it doesn't have to stick. It's just in there and the strings hold it tight. You just don't want it to fall off when you do a string change. So just some Elmer's is real nice. It doesn't stick to the wood real securely. It certainly doesn't stick to the plastic real good. So just some, you know, easy going glue is perfect. So I got the nut a little low. I don't think he'll want, it's okay, but I don't think he'll want as much rattle. Buzz is bad, rattle's okay. So I just put some layers of sticky tape, double-sided tape all along the bottom. And then you just take a knife and trim off the excess. Not a knife, but a razor blade. Instead of trying to cut a piece beforehand, just like that. And then we have our nut, and the double-sided sticky tape will help it stay in place, so we won't put any glue in there. After a couple of weeks of just sitting in there nice and tight, it'll affix. The bridge is good as is. And with an acoustic, because they move around a little bit, you do have to tighten all the strings up to tension and try it. So that's the new bridge. And we'll double check the relief in the neck, but we'll put this nut back in there and then tighten it back up, tune it, play it. You got to do that a couple times. Take your time. And this all can be adjusted later. Nothing's been ruined. It's just going to be, it's part of the process of setting up a guitar. And like I've said, oftentimes setups have to be done. A good setup is done over several weeks of tweaking, you know, if not months, to get a guitar to really be where you want it so that it's going to be stable. Because guitars continue to move. And for somebody to pay to have a setup done one time at Guitar Center or someone else or somewhere else is not the best plan, because you're going to have to pay to have it done again. So it's to get your guitar where you want it. So it's good to make sure you get, or that you know how to do some of these things. That way you can take care of it, massage it, fix it, really tweak it to your liking. All right, we have finished up. We've got our nut nice and low, sanded down the backside, popped this off. As you remember, the high E string has just a little bit of relief. A luthier will tell you if you press at the 3rd fret, you still ought to be able to depress the string some. I don't know of what value that is. You either have a small relief or you don't. But on the low E right there. You can see it's got a little bit of give. This plays very nice, just like a 0 fret guitar, or like it has a capo on it. If you wonder what the difference is, put a capo on and go through a capo 2 or so, and then go through making your chord changes and see if it feels as good as when you have just the nut there with the capo off. If your guitar isn't nice and low like this, you'll feel the difference, and it's a bit harder if your nut is too high. Then we got this sanded down as well. We checked the relief. I did loosen the neck just a little bit, about 1/4 of a turn, and now we have about 1/2 string worth of relief there between the bow of the neck and the straight string. And once again, to check the relief, you hold down at the 1st fret or the F, and then 14, 15, somewhere above the octave, doesn't really matter too much, and then you press that string down. And we have about 1/2 string width of distance between the bottom of the string and the top of the frets. So our neck's bending just a little bit, and on an acoustic you want that because the strings need to really be able to vibrate to create sound in the sound hole. Other than that, just cleaned it up a bit. Wonder if that'll get a copyright. Sounds great. I like it. It's got just enough rattle that if I really dig in, I can get those strings hitting back against the neck. But if I play light, there is no rattle or buzz, which is great. I hope he likes it. Dig in, got some rattle. Sounds good. So get in there and work on your own guitar. If you don't like playing a guitar, then it's probably because it's not set up well. Any guitar that's hard, that you fight to play, is not good or not worth having around. Either sell it or have it set up. And there's nothing that you can do to it that can't be corrected with some shims or just buying a new nut. They're super cheap, and cutting a new one in or whatever. But it's well worth getting into it. Oh, there was also a high fret right there, which was buzzing bad. Buzzing, not rattle. And just hit that with my flat file, about 3 strokes of the flat file, and then 1000 grit on top of that, just to polish it up a little bit. And got rid of that, and that made that nice. In case he ever gets up here to play, it would be nice to have that kind of cleaned up. Anyway, I'll shut up. Gotta go. Have a good time. Enjoy. Old Guy Jamming out.